Okay, music students, today I would like to talk to you about some practice techniques for right at the beginning of when we are learning a piece of music. These are two things that I do almost right away when I'm sight reading or right after I sight read a piece of music when I'm preparing to practice it. And there's two concepts that I want you to really understand. The first is looking for repetition in our music. So we want to look for things that are repeated. The second is identifying challenge sections within the music. So when we think about repetition, we might not think that our band or orchestra music has a lot of repetition in it. We know from popular music that there's a ton of repetition, right? The chorus of a song, for example, has the same words repeated and the same melody, and it happens several times in a song, like a popular song. But we might not think that that's as common in more, classical kind of style of music. However, when we really dig into it, we'll actually find a lot of repetition in orchestra and band music as well. And identifying that is a key component of making your practice more efficient and more effective. So one of the very first things I do when I start to practice a piece of music is I look for that repetition. I think, okay, this phrase, I identify like, an 8-measure phrase, a 4-measure phrase, a 16-measure phrase, a complete musical idea. And then I kind of scan through the part and I think, okay, where else do I see that? Whether that's on piano, like solo piano, whether that's a violin part in an orchestral piece of music. I look, okay, where is that phrase repeated? Do I see that phrase again? And very, very often, we're going to find that big chunk of music happens actually multiple times throughout the piece of music. Even if it happens later, a composer rarely just does something once and then it goes away and never comes back. It's much more common that we have phrases that repeat. So oftentimes I find that students look for like 1 to 2 measure chunks and they look for those to be repeated. There's nothing wrong with that because that's very common too. But I would encourage you to actually look for bigger chunks of music, big phrases that get repeated. Because if you identify, okay, this phrase happens like 2 or 3 times or 4 or 5 times throughout this piece of music, then you'll realize, I don't need to practice that like over and over and over again after the first time it happens. If it's an identical repeat, then I practice that phrase until it's good, and then I can kind of move on to other things. And I don't have to over practice something that gets repeated a lot. So that is our first concept, repeating music, identifying that. We identify repetition so that we can make our practice more efficient and effective. The second concept is challenge sections. And this is another really important thing that we want to do very early when we're starting to practice a piece of music. We want to go through and we want to identify a few challenge spots, challenge sections. Now, these can be 1 measure, they can be 2 measures, they could be an entire phrase, 8 or 16 measures. It depends on how long the piece of music is. It depends on tempo. There's many, many factors. But we really want to identify, okay, where is the challenging parts? Where are the challenging parts of this music? And the reason we want to do that is because those are the parts we need to go right to, right? One of my mentors, Dr. Scott, he says it's like fire hose to a fire, right? If we have a fire in a house, we want to put the fire hose on that right away. We don't want to wait and let that kind of get out of control. We want to go for that almost immediately. So we identify these challenge sections by looking at tricky fingerings. It depends on whether we're playing a string or a wind instrument. So tricky fingerings, string crossings, or maybe it's an awkward part of the range. It's at a weird partial in our instrument. It's really at a high extreme or a low extreme. If it's a string instrument, maybe we have to do some shifting. There's all sorts of things that can make a section more challenging. But we want to identify that, and we want to mark those in our music. You could use letters like A, B, C. You could use numbers like 1, 2, 3. You could star it. But either way, you want to identify that almost right away as you're practicing, and you want to give those extra attention. Another one of my teachers in high school, my classical piano teacher, he called those our best friends. We want to hang out with our best friends more than all our other friends, right? Because we want to keep that relationship really good with our best friends. We need to give them special attention. So you need to find your best friends in that music, and you need to give those extra attention. So that's our second concept, identifying challenge sections. So now I want you to go on back, check out that piece of music, answer those questions on the worksheet, and then we will apply these concepts to the piece that you are working on right now as well.